Not all baby sleep products are what they seem. Despite what the marketing says, a lot of them either don't work or in many cases they pose a significant safety risk. And it's likely that you have at least one of the 6 products I'm about to talk about in your house because most parents simply aren't aware of the dangers they pose. Let's start with incline sleepers and wedges. Now these products are designed to prop your baby up at an angle while they sleep. And the promise here is that gravity is going to help keep the milk in their stomach and reduce reflux. But what the research actually shows is that sleeping at an angle doesn't help with reflux at all. So despite what the marketing says, it doesn't even work. But what it does do, however, is create real dangers for your baby. And that's because when your baby lies at an angle, their chin drops down to their chest. And if you do that yourself, put your chin on your chest, you'll notice that what it does is block and restrict your airway, making it a bit more difficult to breathe. Now, that same thing happens to babies, and this reduced amount of oxygen that your baby is getting can lead to suffocation. But there's another problem too. Research by Mannen and her team found that the angled surface actually makes it easier for babies to accidentally roll from their back onto their tummy. And if your baby isn't ready to roll on their own, when this happens, they can get stuck, and that further increases the risk of suffocation. Now, you may be thinking, well, I've already used that product with my firstborn and they turned out fine, or lots of people use these and all their babies are okay. But the risks are serious enough that in 2022, the US banned the manufacture and sale of inclined sleepers through the Safe Sleep for Babies Act. New Zealand have also gone ahead and banned these items. Here in Australia, the recommendation for one of our leading sleep safety organisations, Red Nose Australia, is that babies should sleep on their back on a firm, flat surface. And the same recommendation comes from the American Academy of Pediatrics. So basically, the message here is to just remove that inclined sleeper and let them sleep on a firm, flat surface. You don't need anything to prop them up, and it's really not going to help anyway. Now, I just mentioned the Safe Sleep for Babies Act. In that, inclined sleepers and wedges weren't the only thing that they banned. Another thing that they banned as part of this were crib bumpers. Now, you've probably seen these around as they're surprisingly still common. And often when I mention these in my videos, I still get a little bit of pushback. But traditional padded crib bumpers were banned due to the serious safety risks that they pose. And the main concern here is suffocation. If your baby's face presses against that padded bumper, they might not have the strength or the motor skills to actually turn their head away. And because they can't reposition themselves, their face can get smothered by that bumper, and that can lead to suffocation. There are also several other key risks with these bumpers as well. They create a situation where your baby's head can actually get wedged between the bumper and the crib rail, particularly if the bumper is loose or if your baby moves around a lot during sleep. Also, the majority of these bumpers use ribbons or ties to attach them to the side of the crib. And if those ribbons or ties become loose, they actually create a strangulation hazard as well. Another important thing to note here is that bumpers reduce the amount of airflow around the crib, and this can lead to overheating, which is a known risk factor for SIDS. But that's not all. Once your baby can pull themselves up to stand, if they've got bumpers around their crib, they can use those bumpers as a step to help them climb out. And this can and has led to serious falls as well. Now, the other option you've probably seen around the place are mesh bumpers. And you might be thinking, well, these alleviate a lot of those risks. They can breathe through the mesh bumper, and it also allows for more airflow, so they must be a safer alternative. But the American Academy of Pediatrics state mesh bumpers aren't safe either. They still pose those risks around strangulation, suffocation, entrapment, and getting wedged between the bumper and the crib slats. Now, on top of all these safety risks, the thing is, crib bumpers aren't actually solving a problem that needs to be solved. Your baby is really unlikely to hurt themselves when they accidentally bump into the crib slats, nor are they likely to fall through the slats, as slats on modern cribs are spaced really close together to ensure that these things don't happen. We've actually got standards around that here in Australia, and many other countries also have standards around how close those slats have to be now. And if your little one's arm or leg does poke through between the slats, they'll quickly figure out how to pull it back through. So if you do have crib bumpers or you've been told that you should buy some, you might want to consider removing them or avoid getting them altogether based on the things we've just talked about. The next item on the list are sleep positioners. Now, these products are designed to keep your baby in a certain position while they sleep. Now, some create nests around your baby with raised padding, while others have side bolsters or wedges. And they claim that they can stop your baby rolling onto their tummy, which would reduce the risk of SIDS. But contrary to these claims, these devices may actually raise the risk of SIDS. Because just like with crib bumpers, if your baby shifts or rolls and their face ends up pressed against the padded side bolster, they might not have the motor skills or the strength to push themselves away or turn their head. And if their face stays against that soft padding, their nose and mouth can get covered, which blocks their airway and makes it difficult for them to breathe. But here's the bigger issue. These positioners don't actually prevent your baby from rolling onto their tummy. And when your baby does manage to roll onto their tummy while they're in one of these devices, they can become trapped between the positioner and the crib or get wedged into the soft fabric itself. And because the positioner is restricting their movement, they can't actually shift back or adjust their position to breathe more easily. So the very thing that's supposed to keep them secure actually traps them in a dangerous position, which increases the risk of suffocation. It's because of these reasons that the American Academy of Pediatrics and Red Nose Australia recommend that you don't use sleep positioners. Now, another item they recommend you keep out of your baby's crib are loose blankets. Because you see, babies wiggle and move around a lot during their sleep. And when there's a loose blanket in the crib, they can easily end up underneath it. When that happens, the blanket can then cover their face, blocking their nose and mouth and make it harder for them to breathe. The blanket itself can also wrap around them or get tangled in ways that can restrict their breathing. And loose blankets can also cause your baby to overheat. And when babies get too warm during sleep, it actually increases the risk of SIDS. The APA recommends that your baby's crib should have a firm mattress with a clean, tightly fitted sheet. That's it. No extra layers and no loose bedding. So just to recap, firm, flat surface is great, loose blankets are not good. And if you can remember those two things, you're doing great. And if this video has been helpful, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe for more tips that are hopefully easier to remember than that one. And if you're worried about your baby getting cold, use a sleep sack. A sleep sack is a sleeping bag that your baby wears. And because it's worn on their body rather than loose in the crib, it keeps your baby comfortable without any of the suffocation risk that comes with loose blankets. Now, of course, blankets aren't the only things that parents put in cribs hoping to help their baby sleep more comfortably. Soft toys are another common one, and that's because as parents, we remember how that soft toy helped us feel safe and secure at bedtime, and we want our babies to have that same sense of comfort. And when you're dealing with night wakings and trying everything to help your little one settle, adding a cuddly toy to the crib seems like such a simple solution. Maybe if they just had something soft to hold on to, they'd sleep better. But the thing is, research shows that before 7 months of age, babies don't have the developmental capacity to form emotional attachments to objects. So that soft toy is just another object in their environment, no different from the crib bars or the sheets that they're lying on. Around 7 months though, something shifts and they start recognizing their favorite toy and actually finding comfort from them. You'll see them reaching out for that specific stuffed animal when they're upset or holding it close as they drift off to sleep, as having that familiar toy with them helps them feel safe and more settled, especially when you're not right there with them. Before they reach that developmental point though, soft toys just pose a safety risk without any benefit. Because as I've mentioned before, babies move around constantly while they're sleeping, and soft toys can end up anywhere in their crib, including pressed against their face, covering their nose and mouth. And if they don't have the motor skills or strength to push that stuffed animal away, it can increase the risk of suffocation. That's why Red Nose Australia recommend that you keep soft toys out of your baby's crib until they're at least 7 months of age. Now, if sleep is something you're struggling with and you want a little bit of help, I've got a free guide called the New Parent's Guide to Naps, which gives you a breakdown by age when your baby should be napping, how many naps they might need, and how long they need to be awake between naps. And it covers everything from newborn sleep patterns all the way through to the toddler years. And if you'd like to grab a copy, I've linked it down in the description. Now, something you might think of giving your little one in the hope that it will improve their sleep is a pillow. And this makes sense because for us as adults, it's hard to imagine sleeping without one. But for babies, pillows should be avoided because they actually create serious risks. And the main reason is positional asphyxiation. When your baby's head is lying on that pillow, the height of the pillow can actually cause their head to tilt forward, pushing their chin down against their chest. And as I mentioned earlier, this chin to chest position can block your little one's airways, making it difficult for them to breathe. On top of that, there's also the risk that when your baby moves during sleep, the pillow can shift and cover their mouth and nose, which affects their ability to breathe. And lastly, pillows can also trap heat around your baby's head and cause overheating. And all of these risks increase the chances of sudden unexpected death in infancy. It is due to these risks that leading child safety organisations do not recommend using pillows with babies. This recommendation extends to positional pillows, which are those specifically shaped pillows that are marketed to prevent flat spots from developing on your baby's head. Even though they are designed differently, positional pillows can still accidentally cover your little one's face and nose when they move during sleep, and they can still increase the risk of overheating. Now, if you are worried about your little one developing a flat spot on the back of their head, the solution isn't using a pillow. It's giving them plenty of supervised tummy time when they're awake and encouraging your baby to turn their head in both directions during sleep while you're feeding them and during awake time. And in this video, I step you through exactly how you can encourage your baby to do just that. I'll show you simple environmental changes that you can make to naturally encourage your baby to look both ways, as well as a simple exercise that you can start doing with your little one while you're holding them. When you make these small changes, you can significantly reduce the likelihood of your little one developing a flat spot on the back of their head.